You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
Well, I really feel and hope that we are proving the buggles wrong and radio just could be beating the video stars here on CMR. Hello folks, welcome to Scouts Night on Critical Mass Radio, and tonight I'm focusing on the important subject of cancer, how the rates are rising, how the food we are told is good for us is in actual fact not, and the very scary truth about GM foods. So tonight I want to focus on one of the biggies that affects humanity, and that is the disease that is cancer. Not exactly a feel-good subject, but most of the information we try to get out on this station is not for the purpose of feeling good. It's to get people to open their eyes to the real world around them, realise what's happening, and arm themselves with solutions to overcome it. So, the origin of the word cancer is credited to the Greek physician Hippocrates, who lived from 460 to 370 BC and was considered the father of medicine. Hippocrates used the terms carcinose and carcinoma to describe non-ulcer-forming and ulcer-forming tumours. In Greek, these words refer to a crab, most likely applied to the disease because the finger-like spreading projections from a cancer are similar to the shape of a crab. At least 12.6 million people are diagnosed with cancer around the world every year, and more than 7.5 million die of the disease. And this is the toll that is actually steadily rising in every single country. The top 10 countries for cancer rates are, and this is counting backwards, the Czech Republic, Canada, Norway, the US, France, Belgium, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, and top of the list is Denmark. And the UK actually comes in at number 22, which surprised me a bit, I've got to say. And also, the rate of cancers in males seems as a rule to be higher than in women. According to French researchers, the incidence of cancer is expected to increase by more than 75% by the year 2030, and that's in developed countries, and over 90% in developing nations. And this study was published online first in the Lancet Oncology. The lead researcher of that study was someone called Dr. Bray, and he explained, quote, that cancer is already the leading cause of death in many high-income countries and is set to become a major cause of morbidity and mortality in the next decades of every region of the world. This study serves as an important reference point in drawing attention to the need for global action to reduce the increasing burden of cancer. At present, there is a high incidence of cancers associated with infection in nations with a low HDI, which is mainly the countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, and HDI, for anyone who doesn't know, means Human Development Index, which is a composite statistic of life expectancy, education, and income indices, which are used to rank countries into 4 tiers of human development. So essentially, in the low HDI countries, these cancers are particularly cervical cancer, as well as stomach and liver cancer. And by contrast, the burden of lung, breast, and prostate cancer is greater in countries with higher HDIs, such as the UK, Russia, Australia, and Brazil. And according to the researchers, again, by 2030, the number of cancer cases are expected to increase by 78% in medium HDI countries, such as China, India, and South Africa, and by 93% in low HDI countries. Well, I don't know about you, but to me, that just isn't right, because in so many ways, we are led to believe that our technologies are moving forward and humanity is progressing, and then on the other hand, more and more of us are getting sick, so it just doesn't add up to me. And it's not exactly hard to figure out. There's a lot of external contaminants which affect our bodies. But the obvious link is that the quality of what we put into our bodies is going to affect directly the actual quality of our body, full stop. And it's the old, which oil do you put in your engine analogy, right? So if we actually look at the labels on the foods that we mostly buy now from supermarkets, because again, the whole process of buying food has changed in this country and many others, because gone are most of the small community shops, gone are a lot of the farm produce shops, and it's not only the joining up of people in the communities that's being taken away from us, but it's also the quality of what we eat. Okay, so we have aspartame, monosodium glutamate, MSG, artificial colorings and flavorings, BHA, BHT, yeast, yeast extract, hydrogenized ingredients, L-proteins, seasonings, spices, cottonseed oil, canola oil, and the list just goes on and on. So you say, what's wrong with these? Seasonings and spices sound okay, and these things are all approved, so what's the problem? Well, if spices and seasonings were really what the words indicate, there would be nothing wrong with it, but hey, surprise, surprise, they're actually cover words for MSG when they're used in general terms like this. Because if they were really spices and seasonings as we would normally think of them to be, they would not be listed in these general terms as the spice or seasoning would be individually named, like salt, ginger, cinnamon, etc. So if it were really a spice, it would name the actual spice, not be listed as the general term spices or flavourings or seasonings. And I'm afraid that MSG and all these cover words are used deliberately to deceive the public. And actually, MSG also paves the way to Alzheimer's disease because it can cause permanent brain damage too. And do you ever wonder why our kids today can't learn in school the way they used to, and why they have so many learning and behavioural problems? And this has actually been proven by extensive research. And these days, you can't even buy a stick of chewing gum or a can of soup without it having added poisons. All processed foods, cake mixes, crackers, bread, and even pet foods are loaded with these deadly killers. Aspartame is NutraSweet and also causes brain dysfunction. Then there's the waste products, cottonseed oil and canola oil. Neither of them are meant for human consumption. They're cheap, and that's why companies use them, but they are also extremely dangerous. They can cause stroke or heart attacks, since both oils cause the blood to become a sticky substance, and again, it's like gumming up your car engine with glue in place of a good clean oil. The best oil you can in fact actually use is coconut oil, which is actually very good for us, although to listen to mainstream media you wouldn't think it. Also, all these additives are fattening as well, and so incidentally are the antibiotics you get from your doctor and the antibiotics in cow's milk, not to mention all the other poisons and chemicals in milk too. So we ask ourselves, why would the governments want to do this? Simple, as with most things, it comes down to money and control. Plus, there's a not-so-well-known agency within the government that was started way back in the early 1900s by the Rockefellers, and it's called the Population Control Agency. And its meaning is exactly as it sounds. It's not just by chance that we have a different flu epidemic every year and exactly at the same time every year. We even have a season name for it now, the flu season, and you never heard of this term 35 to 40 years ago. So the mainstream media spoon-feeds us exactly what the government elites want us to feed on, and exactly when, where, and how to. 50 years ago, there was no flu season. In fact, flu was rare. It certainly did not have a yearly visit, as it now has for the past 20 years. It's no secret anymore that our governments have used its citizens as experimental guinea pigs for many, many years, and still does. Everything from radiation experiments to biological experiments. Just as the Gulf War syndrome was created in the Maryland government lab and deliberately injected and put into the food of our soldiers, and they were also given pills. Yes, they were guinea pigs, and that's not to mention what is done to the poor indigenous people in America and Canada with regards to vaccine experimentation, but you've heard me talk on that one before. So it's virtually impossible to go to the food stores today and find any food pure without some kind of additives added. Kids are raised from a young age on these government-controlled foods, and their taste buds on the tongue and the connections in the brain have become programmed as to what something is supposed to taste like, even if it is fake and toxic. This has been a progressive procedure by our government, all leading to one thing: full control of the people. So just think about it. If you control the health of the people, then you really do control them. It's that simple, really, and it is working. Try to find a young person today that knows what true foods and their real taste are, and you can't. They've all been programmed from young on, and that includes the young parents of today who think a meal is running to McDonald's or blooming Burger King. These are not only unhealthy foods, but dangerous as well. You only have to look at all the heart attacks that are now happening to people, and some teenagers' blood pressures today are that of 80-year-olds. And it's all due to our Western diet of fast foods. Because no one knows what a homemade dinner is anymore. No one cooks anymore, and it's actually killing us. Even canned vegetables are flavour enhanced, and nothing can change those programmed taste buds once they're formed. And it begins with the first people foods that are given to our babies, and that ungodly concoction called soda. And if you could actually see what that does to your insides, you really would never touch that poison again, because quite honestly, I've heard that some people use cola as a toilet cleaner, so say no more. So what can you expect, though? These new young parents today are a product of a government foods and chemicals conspiracy that's why it's called the chemical generation. People need food, and the government controls it all. Think about that. They have control on what you put into your body. They control how food should taste to you. They have you fully programmed just the way they want, and you don't even know it. And remember, very importantly, sick people are money makers for everyone concerned with the government. The doctors, the drug companies, the thousands of health organisations, and the governments have their fingers in all of these. Weak and sickly people are easier to control. Healthy people can fight back, and the government does not want that. So it really is time that we the people stand up for ourselves and for our children. Okay, I'm going to say this again because I don't think you heard me before because I had a bit of mic trouble, but basically we've got one day to go, as you heard there, before the first ever Critical Mass Conference. Our Time to Act event is taking place this Saturday in Didsbury, Manchester, and all of us here are really looking forward to what promises to be a fantastic day of information, networking, solutions, and just people who get it, getting on and uniting. And if you're still trying to decide whether or not to go, well, I urge you deeply to go for it because it's going to be a landmark event for us normal people just trying to take back our futures and make this world a better place because our time really is now. Okay, next up, I've got a fiery and funny talk from a New York Times food writer, Mark Bittman, and he's talking about what's wrong with the way we eat now. Too much meat, too few plants, too much fast food, too little home cooking, and why it's putting the entire planet at risk. Okay, so a lot of what I'm talking about kind of ties into what I was discussing last week, which is the importance of self-sufficiency and gaining our own independence from the control system for our own health as much as anything else. And the article I'm going to read out now was done by another hero of mine, a guy called Mike Adams, and I've mentioned before that Mike was one of my early inspirations on my journey down the path of truth. He's a natural health author and a technology pioneer in the US with a strong interest in personal health and the environment and the power of nature to help us all heal. And he's also a prolific writer and has published thousands of articles, interviews, reports, and consumer guides, impacting the lives of millions of readers around the world who are experiencing phenomenal health benefits from reading his articles. He's very much a trusted independent journalist who receives no money or promotional fees whatsoever to write about other companies' products. And in 2007, he launched EcoLEDs, a manufacturer of mercury-free, energy-efficient LED lighting products. And he also launched an online retailer of environmentally friendly products and uses a portion of its profits to help fund non-profit endeavors. So he is a true inspiration, and I'm going to be reading out a number of his articles in the future. And also check out his website at naturalnews.com. This is a US-based article, but you can guarantee that it's going to be very similar to what's going on over here. So this article is called The USDA's Food Irradiation Plot and goes as follows, quote, US food and health authorities in league with corporations are enacting plans to sterilize the fresh food supply with irradiation, thus destroying essential disease-fighting nutrients and promoting a sick society. Why the USDA wants to sterilize fresh produce and turn live foods into dead foods. There's a new plot underway to sterilize your food and destroy the nutritional value of fresh produce. The players in this plot are the usual suspects, the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, and the American Chemical Society, a pro-chemical group that represents the interests of industrial chemical manufacturers. The latest push comes from USDA researchers who conducted a study to see which method more effectively killed bacteria on leafy green vegetables like spinach. To conduct the study, they bathed the spinach in a solution contaminated with bacteria. Then they tried to remove the bacteria using three methods: washing, chemical spraying, and irradiation. Not surprisingly, only the irradiation killed nearly 100% of the bacteria colonies. That's because radiation sterilizes both the bacteria and the vegetable leaves, effectively killing the plant and destroying much of its nutritional value while it kills the bacteria. The USDA claims this is a huge success. By using radiation on all fresh produce, they claim the number of foodborne illness outbreaks that happen each year could be substantially reduced. It all makes sense until you realize that by destroying the nutritional value of all fresh produce sold in the United States, an irradiation policy would greatly increase the number of people killed by infections and chronic diseases that are prevented by the natural medicines found in fresh produce. Why fresh living produce helps prevent sickness. The USDA, you see, has zero recognition of the difference between living produce and dead produce. To uneducated government bureaucrats, pasteurized or irradiated vegetable juice is identical to fresh, raw, living vegetable juice. They believe this because they've never been taught about the phytonutrients, digestive enzymes, and life force properties that are found in fresh foods, but that are destroyed through heat or irradiation. The USDA is operating out of extreme ignorance when it comes to food and nutrition. Even a simple leaf of spinach contains hundreds of natural medicines, phytonutrients that help prevent cancer, eye diseases, nervous system disorders, heart disease, and much more. Every living vegetable is a powerhouse of disease-fighting medicine. Broccoli prevents cancer, beet greens cleanse the liver, Cilantro removes heavy metals, celery prevents cancer, berries prevent heart disease, and dark leafy greens help prevent over a dozen serious health conditions while boosting immune function and helping prevent other infections. But when you subject these fruits and vegetables to enough radiation to kill 99.9% of the pathogens that may be hitching a ride, you also destroy many of the phytonutrients responsible for these tremendous health benefits. This means that while irradiating food may decrease outbreaks of foodborne illnesses, it will have the unintended consequence of increasing the number of people who get sick from other infections and chronic diseases due to the fact that their source of natural medicine has been destroyed. For many Americans, you see, salad greens are their one remaining source for phytonutrients. Given their diets of processed foods, junk foods, and cooked foods, there are very few opportunities for these consumers to get fresh, phytonutrient-rich foods into their diet. And now the USDA wants to take that away too by mandating the irradiation of all fresh produce. Let me make a rather obvious prediction on the record. If the irradiation of fresh produce goes into effect in the United States, rates of infection among consumers will sharply increase, not decrease, due to the removal of immune-boosting natural medicine from the food supply. Consumers will also experience higher rates of cancer, heart disease, dementia, eye disorders, diabetes, and even obesity. By destroying these thousands of healing phytonutrients, irradiation may leave many consumers defenseless against modern society's many health challenges. It is no exaggeration to say that a policy of mass irradiation of fresh produce is as blatantly stupid as the Romans building their aqueducts with lead-lined waterways. As historians have explained, after the aqueducts were built, the water delivered to the Roman population was contaminated with lead, a heavy metal that causes numerous health problems, including insanity. Many historians blame the lead-lined aqueducts as one of the primary reasons why the Roman Empire fell. Its leaders went mad, and the rest is history. I would argue that America's leaders are already mad, but that's beside the point. If we start irradiating our food, thereby destroying its nutritional value, we are going to unleash a cascade of unintended consequences even greater than the Romans' aqueducts. Take away the protections of phytonutrients found in plants, the health of most consumers will rapidly decline, and we'll see the US thrust into a quagmire of chronic disease and medical bankruptcy. It's already heading there, of course, but killing the food supply will only accelerate the downward spiral of health. Let's sterilize all the food. Raw milk has also been under attack in California and elsewhere. The USDA supported laws that essentially banned the sales of raw milk, requiring milk to be sterilized too. If you now irradiate all the fresh produce, you have a food supply that is predominantly sterilized, otherwise known as dead. And dead foods lead to dead people. That a society's health regulators would want all foods to be dead should be downright shocking to anyone who knows anything about health and nutrition. Live foods keep people alive, but dead foods make people dead. It really is not a complicated concept. The USDA's definition of food safety, however, is based on the idea that the health of one immune system compromised individual who can't handle a little E. coli is more important than the ongoing health of the entire population. Thus, all foods must be killed for everyone. I strongly disagree with this approach. Food should not be expected to be sterilized. In terms of food safety, emphasis should be placed on boosting the health and immune systems of individuals so that they can survive occasional contact with E. coli rather than trying to create a sterile environment in which nothing is alive. As it turns out, the people susceptible to foodborne illnesses are precisely those individuals who have compromised immune systems due to their intake of vaccines and antibiotics. Thus, it is modern medicine that has made people vulnerable to foodborne illnesses. Blame the drug companies, not the bacteria. But the USDA would rather blame the food. Blaming conventional medicine for the harm it has caused to the human immune system is not politically correct. It's better to blame the food than use scare tactics to announce yet more outbreaks and hope for a public outcry for widespread food irradiation. And that brings me to the final solution on food irradiation. And I'm just going to draw a breath now and play some music before I read the final bit of that article. And this really is all frightening stuff, but I think we've all got to face this if we want to save ourselves and if we want to save our planet. So love that. And I've got to thank Paul for reminding me about Darius Campbell earlier in the week, because I went on to find that track, and that's a lovely tribute to the wonder of Mass Monroe. Okay, so returning to the article I've just been reading by Mike Adams, known as the Health Ranger in the US, and again, his website is naturalnews.com. And bearing in mind here that this is the US being talked about, but you can bet your bottom dollar that everything planned for over there will also be planned for us here in the UK. So, carrying on, quoting, How the USDA plans to join the FDA in keeping everyone sick. There is a corporate-sponsored plot underway in the US today to keep people sick and deny them access to information about natural cures such as medicinal foods that would prevent disease and keep people out of hospitals. In more than 1,500 articles on this website, I've documented the FDA's criminality, the USDA's indefensible actions, and the criminal behavior of drug manufacturers who only earn profits if they can find a way to keep the entire population sick and diseased for another generation or two. Destroying the natural medicine in the food supply sure would be a highly effective way to create more customers for Big Pharma, wouldn't it? I think it's all part of the keep the population sick and diseased plot being carried out by an evil partnership between drug companies and the US government. We already know that the FDA and the USDA work for the corporations, not the people. We already know that they will do practically anything to boost their profits, including conducting medical experiments on infants, drugging school children, lying to the public, fabricating clinical trials, and much more. Is it any surprise that they would now attempt a final solution on the food supply that kills the food and thereby results in a huge reduction in the population's intake of the disease-fighting nutrients found in fresh produce? Pulling this off, of course, requires a bit of social engineering by the USDA in order to force the public into demanding something to be done. If you're the USDA, you can't just suddenly announce a national food sterilization plan. You have to prime the pump with a bit of dirty work. Here's the simple plan for accomplishing that if you're the USDA. 1. Conduct poor inspections of fresh produce on purpose in order to cause a large increase in foodborne illness outbreaks. We've seen this increase a lot over the last 12 to 24 months. This can be easily accomplished by reducing the budget of food inspection offices or removing inspectors from the payroll altogether, which has already happened. 2. Wait for the outbreaks to happen. When consumers get sick, run national press releases announcing how dangerous the food supply is. 3. Watch the consumer reaction as people and lawmakers demand something be done. 4. Fudge a study with the American Chemical Society to show that washing doesn't work and that irradiation is the only solution. Time the release of this news to coincide with the public outcry that something is to be done. 5. Once the public is demanding a solution to foodborne illness, roll out a national produce irradiation requirement that sterilizes all the food. Mission accomplished. This, of course, will lead to point 6. 6. Watch the population become increasingly sick and diseased thanks to the lack of phytonutrients that used to be found in the fresh produce, and cash in on your big pharma shares as the population is herded into hospitals for lucrative treatments with monopoly-priced pharmaceuticals. It's the same old social engineering trick that's been used to hoodwink the American people hundreds of times. How did you get the public to support a war in the Middle East? Stage an attack on US soil first and wait for the public outcry. How do you get the people to support the mass sterilization of their own food supply? Lower your inspection standards, let the sickness spread, and then wait for the public outcry. It's the way governments get things done these days. They manipulate the public into demanding the things that they want to accomplish in the first place. These are sometimes called false flag operations in a military concept, and they've been conducted by the US government on numerous occasions, just like they were conducted by Hitler in Nazi Germany to justify his invasions of neighboring countries. What they really want, a dead food supply. Let's be blunt about this. The corporations running this country, which also run the US government, want the US food supply to be dead. They don't want foods to be used as medicines, and they don't want the natural medicines found in foods competing with their own patented pharmaceutical medicines that just happen to earn them a whole lot more money than any food ever did. Don't you find it curious that this attack on the food supply is coming out now, right after all this incredible news about the healing powers of foods has been hitting the science journals? Every week it seems we find out about another amazing health property in a food. Black raspberries reverse oral cancer, pomegranates halt prostate cancer, the list goes on. Just on my website alone, we've probably published 1,000 stories over the last 2 years on the disease-fighting properties of foods. The thing to realize here is that many of the healing properties of these foods are destroyed through pasteurization or irradiation. If you're a government that wants to take away the people's medicine, the fastest way to accomplish that is to mandate the sterilization of the food supply. Kill the foods and you take away the people's medicine, and that forces the population to use pharmaceuticals instead. The FDA, for for its part, has for many decades conducted its natural medicine censorship campaign, whose only purpose is to deny the people access to accurate information about the healing properties of natural medicines found in foods and herbs. But apparently that wasn't enough. The internet came along and people found a way to educate themselves. So since the FDA couldn't keep the truth about natural medicine bottled up and censored, the government has now apparently decided to just sterilize all the foods, thereby destroying the natural medicine and transforming Mother Nature's gift into dead calories. Right, now this article just carry on for a bit more, but I do have an audio that I want to play before the end of the program, and time is running out as per usual, so I'm actually going to just skip on, and I'm going to play next, sticking with Mike Adams. This is an audio by him. It's quite shocking. This is stuff that we need to be shouting out from every rooftop, and because this is actually going on, so listen now to Mike Adams talking about how GMO foods alter organ function and pose a very real health threat to humans. Well, Frankenfood indeed. This stuff is scary, folks, and this is what is being done to the food that we eat, and most of us are either unaware or just too busy living our lives. Well, quite frankly, what can be more important than this stuff? This is our future and the future of our children. There are people at the top of this corrupt system actually doing this to us, and if we don't all start shouting out as loudly as possible against all this, then, well, to some extent we deserve all we get. The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. Einstein was spot on there, and this is what the people who seek to do this stuff to us rely on. Our ignorance and apathy, and quite frankly, we've handed it to them on a plate right now. So we really all need to wake up quickly to what is going on and join forces and spread the word to as many people as we can and use our strengths and our strong survival instincts to actually beat this crap. Okay, so that's the last time I'll play that on my show. I hope to see some of you this Saturday at the Britannia Country House Hotel in Didsbury. It's going to be a great day, so please try and get there if you can. Next up, we've got the Reverend and Pippa G. They're going to have a round-the-table discussion, including Dave Lloyd, talking about chemtrails and the relatively new phenomena of ship trails, which is chemtrailing by commercial and military shipping that is reaching frightening levels. Also talking about RFID chips and the introduction of the technology into one of the largest and newest colleges in Britain, the West Cheshire College in Ellesmere Port, Merseyside, not too far from me. So that's on next at 9 o'clock. I definitely won't be with you next week, unfortunately, because I won't have any internet connection, so it will be a recorded past show. Sorry about that, boss. It's totally out of my control, but hopefully I'll be back the week after. So I'm going to say goodnight now to everybody. Thanks for listening. I wish you all perfect health, if you can, in these hard times, perfect life and a magic future, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now it's our turn.